me. You ever spend $290 on something beautiful, only to have someone call the cops over it? That's right, not a flamethrower, not a pet crocodile, just a mailbox. And that little box, it detonated a 4-month war with the most dangerous weapon in the suburbs of Karen with a clipboard. They wanted silence, me. I gave them a neighborhood tour called Karen's Greatest Violations, and it came with snacks. Trust me, you need to hear how this plays out because it's absolutely wild. Drop where you're watching from. I left Silicon Valley burnout in my rearview mirror and set my sights on peace, pine trees, and a cabin that needed more rehab than a reality show contestant. Me. I didn't move up here to pick fights. I came to build something with my own 2 hands and watch squirrels argue about acorns. 6 months of busted knuckles YouTube tutorials, me. And questionable power tool decisions later, my dream was finally finished. And what was the final cherry on top of my handcrafted cabin sundae? A custom cedar mailbox, me. Carved with a flock of birds in the Carter residence, in bold, elegant script. It wasn't just wood, it was closure in postbox form. Then came her, Dolores Templeton, me. Picture a human cease and desist letter wrapped in beige polyester. She marched down the gravel like she was walking into a courtroom drama, pointed at my box, and barked. What is that supposed to be? I smiled proud. Just my mailbox. The Carter residence. Who lives here besides you? She snapped. I said, just me. She paused. Me. Then it's false advertising. That's when I realized this wasn't about Cedar. This was about territory, and apparently, I'd committed a felony by naming my own driveway. I tried to explain. Me. It's not a business, it's just decorative, like people name their boats. She cut me off like she was canceling a subscription. Boats float, me. This is fixed to ground and violating standards. I blinked. Violating what? I hadn't even finished tightening the bolts yet. That's when she pulled out her phone, took 14 crime scene style photos. Me and hissed, you have 24 hours to fix this misleading structure or face formal violations. I half expected her to yell objection and slap me with a subpoena. I stood there wrench in hand, staring at my mailbox like it had betrayed me. What kind of person wakes up on a Saturday and decides that mailbox is their hill to die on? Dolores didn't just dislike the mailbox. She saw it as a threat to civilization itself. I came to the mountains for fresh air and porch coffee, but I had just been drafted into the HOA Hunger Games. And let me tell you, this was just the opening round. She thought she could find me into submission. But what she didn't know was that I read bylaws for fun, and I hadn't even opened my toolbox yet, me. If you've never been fined for decorative lettering, you haven't truly lived in an HOA. After sleeping on it, I did what every peace, loving, non-litigious adult does when faced with irrational hostility. I compromised. I unscrewed the Carter residence and replaced it with Miles Carter, thinking maybe it was the home part that got Dolores's neck veins vibrating like a violin string. I even centered it perfectly, used matching font, and stepped back like a man who just defused a suburban time bomb. For 24 hours, me. The silence was so golden I thought maybe she'd gone on a meditation retreat or gotten a Groupon for therapy. Nope. The next morning, me. I opened my front door to find Dolores standing in front of my mailbox with the intensity of a judge who'd just been handed an overturned ruling. She squinted at the new plate like it was a forged passport, me. Then turned to me and snapped, "No, you're being sneaky!" That's the word she used, sneaky, like I'd hidden a meth lab behind my driveway, me. Before I could even get out a good morning, she whipped out a neon yellow violation sticker and slapped it on the post like it was a sheriff's badge. Property misrepresentation, 200 fine. Me. I wish I were joking. I asked, politely mind you, what exact rule I'd broken now. Her response was poetry written in red flags. Community standards are not just about rules. Me. They're about respect. Then she accused me of testing the limits, which frankly sounded more like a CrossFit slogan than an HOA offense. I nodded, smiled, me, and did what any tech nerd turned cabin recluse would do in that moment. I printed out the entire HOA covenant and read it like a detective with a grudge. What I found was both hilarious and infuriating. Me, no mention of mailbox names. Not in signage, not in structural guidelines, not even in the decorative uniformity clause that sounded like it had been ghostwritten by a fascist with a paint chip obsession. Me, Dolores was freestyling, riffing, making it up as she went along like the self-appointed dungeon master of cul-de-sac chaos. Me. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was rewriting reality to soothe her personal insecurities, and I'd just become her favorite chew toy. So remember that trying to appease someone drunk on control doesn't sober them up, it just fills their cup. I changed 4 letters to keep the peace, but Dolores took it as a declaration of war. What she did next, let's just say it made the mailbox drama look like a warm-up round. Some people collect stamps, me. Dolores collects conflict with a 3-ring binder and highlighters. The mailbox war might have seemed local, but Dolores wanted it syndicated. Less than 48 hours after issuing my fine, she took her HOA Holy War digital. Her post on the neighborhood forum was titled in all caps, "This is what happens when outsiders disrespect our community." Underneath was a picture of my innocent cedar mailbox and a rant so long it needed chapters. She labeled me a visual nuisance, accused me of covert noncompliance, and suggested I might be part of a larger pattern of rule defiance. Ma'am, I installed a mailbox, not launched a coup. I'd hoped people would see through the nonsense, but the internet works faster than common sense. Suddenly, neighbors who once waved started walking their dogs in slow, suspicious loops past my driveway. One lady actually reversed course when I came outside. The air had changed, smelled less like pine and more like petty politics. I hadn't just been fined, I'd been excommunicated by post, and all because Dolores weaponized passive aggression like it was a badge of honor. That's when Tom stepped in. Retired IRS auditor, war veteran, 2-time chili cook-off champion, basically a human BS detector in orthopedic shoes. He dropped by with coffee and a low voice. "She's been doing this for a while, Miles. You're just the first one who pushed back." According to Tom, Dolores hadn't shared HOA financial records in over a year. Meetings were postponed, votes were unnecessary, and everything from sidewalk repairs to tree trimming went through her personal discretion and budget. Which, of course, nobody had ever seen, but the real kicker. "I think she's got something stashed in that garage," Tom said, tapping his mug. "Last summer I saw a delivery, big cedar package, wrapped tight. Looked an awful lot like your mailbox." Suddenly the pieces rearranged themselves. The nameplate fury, the personal offense, the gaslight and fine routine. Dolores wasn't just mad about my mailbox. She was haunted by her own. A hidden cedar shrine to a life that had fallen apart, buried under plastic in her garage like a secret she couldn't throw away. Bullies hate mirrors. They prefer power with no reflection. She called me a fraud. But the thing hiding under her tarp told a different story, and it was about to speak volumes. There it was, Her Majesty's forbidden mailbox, wrapped in plastic and regret. Tom showed up with a folder so thick it needed a seatbelt. "HOA expense records," he said, thumbing through pages like a man peeling back lies. Line 47 jumped out like a punchline with a receipt to tutor 90s community infrastructure test item. No description, no vote, no trace of anything ever being installed. But the vendor name. Same artisan who'd carved my now infamous mailbox. That's when we both realized Dolores hadn't just fined me. She'd replicated me first. The plot thickened faster than HOA meeting minutes. Tom, with the stealth of a dad sneaking Halloween candy, suggested a casual dog walk past Dolores's garage. Her SUV was gone, probably off collecting souls or more clipboards. As we strolled by, I noticed it under the tarp, a cedar corner with the same beveled edge as mine. Tom angled his phone, zoomed in, and we both squinted at the engraving through the plastic. It read the Templeton home. Same script, same wood, same emotional landmine, except hers had never seen daylight. It all clicked like a mailbox lit in winter. She'd ordered one for herself during the chaos of her divorce, bought it with HOA funds, no less. Probably envisioned it as her Phoenix moment, new name, new chapter, new mailbox. But when the fantasy crumbled, she stuffed it under a tarp like it owed her child support. Then I showed up with mine, smiling like someone who hadn't been ghosted by a marriage counselor. And suddenly I became her moving, talking regret in cargo pants. This wasn't about policy. It wasn't even about HOA standards. This was Dolores trying to drown her past in HOA bureaucracy, and using me as the sandbag. She couldn't install hers, so she fined mine. Couldn't fix her home, so she turned my nameplate into a personal offense. And all of it, every fine, every post, every hissed violation notice, stemmed from a 290 cedar box she never had the heart to mount. To me. When people bury their shame, it usually grows mold in a 2-car garage. She hid her past in a mailbox, then tried to bury mine under fines. I wasn't about to let her, because next, I brought the HOA bylaws and a projector. You haven't hit rock bottom until someone calls the cops on your cedar post. It was a Wednesday, the kind of day meant for coffee and birdwatching, not law enforcement. I was tightening a screw on my mailbox when 2 squad cars pulled into my driveway like I'd just been flagged on America's Most Wanted Mailbox edition. The officers stepped out slow, cautious, like they were expecting a man foaming at the mouth with a chainsaw in one hand and a hand-carved nameplate in the other. "Sir," said Officer Bennett, "we received a call about a welfare concern, something about obsessive signage behavior." I blinked, then blinked again. "You're telling me someone called 911 because my mailbox looks too emotionally invested?" Officer Rodriguez tried not to smile. Mom across the street said you've been acting erratic, regarding decorative property identifiers. Meanwhile, Dolores stood across the street with her arms crossed like she was expecting a SWAT team. The cops walked over to examine the mailbox like it was a radioactive crime scene, then nodded. Mailbox looks legal. Man seems stable. Case closed. But as they turned to leave, a dispatch crackled through the radio. Unit 12, follow-up requested on recent municipal report. Maple Street address flagged for permit inconsistencies. The voice was grainy, but the effect was immediate. Dolores's posture went from smug to ghost white in 0.2 seconds. She stiffened like someone just whispered the results of a paternity test on Lev TV. I didn't know what that call meant yet, but judging by her reaction, it was the sound of karma clearing its throat. The officers nodded politely and left, but I could see Dolores retreating toward her garage. Her heels clicking at double speed. Something about that radio message had detonated every nerve in her HOA riddled spine. She slammed the door behind her like she was trying to lock out reality. Whatever that municipal review was, it wasn't for me, and I had a hunch it had everything to do with a certain mailbox-sized tarp in her garage and a 290 lie buried underneath it. The irony was tastier than a barbecue rib at a city council picnic. In trying to paint me as unstable, Dolores had handed the city a GPS pin to her own cover-up. She'd called the authorities to take me down, and in doing so, accidentally flagged herself for official inspection. It wasn't just petty anymore, it was poetic. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to sit back and let bureaucracy do what it does best, arrive late, file a report, and absolutely ruin the day of the person who dialed first. Malice with a badge is still malice, and sometimes the badge turns around. She called the police on me. What the inspector found in her garage changed everything, and this time, the violation notice didn't have my name on it. Dolores prepared for the inspector like she was prepping for a wedding. Unfortunately, the groom was Justice. The morning of the inspection, Dolores was pacing her driveway like a royal watching for invaders. Hair lacquered, bender bulging, clipboard in hand like it was the Ten Commandments, Meanwhile, I was sipping coffee with the serenity of someone who'd already vacuumed under the rug and dared the guests to look. The city inspector, a man named Dave with a mustache that screamed seen it all, walked up to my mailbox, gave it a 10-second once-over and said, "Looks good to me. Cedar's a nice touch. But protocol is protocol." Dave jotted a few notes and turned toward the rest of the block like a truffle pig for violations. Dolores stiffened. "Would you like water?" she offered, her voice suddenly sugared. "There's really nothing to see over here. Just some seasonal storage in my garage." Dave squinted, unimpressed. "Actually, ma'am, we're required to check the entire perimeter for permit inconsistencies." She blinked, once like a robot about to overheat. That's when he saw it. The corner of Cedar peeking from beneath the tarp. Dave approached slowly, clipboard raised like a crucifix. "And what's this?" Dolores flinched. "That's not installed! That's decorative storage!" she barked, arms flailing like she was shooing ghosts. Dave, calm as ever, peeled back the tarp. Hand carved, engraved, still in packaging. This wouldn't happen to be community property, would it? Dolores's silence said everything, including "Oops." He clicked his pen with the solemnity of a judge. Unpermitted structure. Improper use of HOA funds pending confirmation. Violation issued. Then he scribbled the time on his form, 2:17 p.m. I checked my phone. Her 911 call about my mailbox. Logged at 20:14 p.m. she'd summoned Justice, and it arrived with surgical irony 3 minutes later and squarely on her garage floor. You can't weaponize the rule book when you're the one using it as a coaster. Her complaint took 3 minutes to boomerang, and it hit like a sledgehammer of irony. But the next bombshell, that came with a projector, a receipt, and a room full of neighbors. They brought folding chairs in rage. Dolores brought a spreadsheet. Only one survived. The community center hadn't seen this much foot traffic since the Great Lemonade Stand zoning war of 2019. Residents filed in like jury duty had turned into a chili cook-off, half curious, half ready to burn the place down. Dolores stood at the front table, rigid and over-accessorized, flanked by a printer and a microphone like she was hosting a telethon for self-righteousness. "We're here," she began, "because one individual has chosen to undermine the order we've maintained for years." Her voice echoed like a courtroom where she played judge, jury, and very unqualified executioner. I stayed quiet, but Tom brought thunder. Midway through Dolores's PowerPoint, yes, she actually titled it, "Protecting Our Standards from Anarchy." He clicked his remote and hijacked the screen. Slide 1, a receipt. Slide 2, a Cedar mailbox. Slide 3, the same mailbox under a tarp in Dolores's garage. Community infrastructure test item. Tom Reed pausing like a preacher. Purchased with OA funds. Never presented for vote. Never installed. Never refunded. The room went dead quiet, like a church where someone just confessed during bingo night. Then came the murmurs. Then the stares. Then someone in the back whispered, "Me. That's embezzlement." Dolores stood frozen, still gripping her spreadsheet like it might turn into a shield. "This is a misunderstanding," she blurted, eyes wide. "Me. That mailbox was for community evaluation purposes." But the crowd wasn't buying what she hadn't even bothered to unbox. Questions flew. Why is it still in your garage? Where's the refund? Why did you call 911 over decorative wood? Dolores looked like someone who'd accidentally hit reply all on her confessions. Tom called for a no confidence vote. The hands went up like it was a Black Friday sale on justice. Final tally 34-8. Dolores was officially dethroned. She sat there stunned, as if the HOA crown had been welded to her skull. Then, as if karma were on payroll, a knock hit the door. The postman stepped in, holding a large envelope. Certified letter for Dolores Templeton, from the Pinebrook Municipal Office. The audience held its breath. When people stopped whispering, tyrants stopped ruling. She thought it was over. But the envelope in her hand said otherwise, and what it contained, well, let's just say it had a return address from Poetic Justice. Her HOA died. My mailbox lived, and the community got free burgers out of it. Dolores didn't stay long after the vote. 1 week later, for sale by owner, sign appeared on her lawn, written in Comic Sans, which honestly felt like one final cry for help. Rumor had it she was selling fast to pay off city fines, pending violations. And an embarrassing refund request for the infamous Cedar test item. I didn't dance on her metaphorical grave, but I did bake cookies and give them to the new owners, who introduced themselves with this, "We love your mailbox. It's the reason we bought here." I almost cried. Almost. Meanwhile, Tom took over as interim HOA chair and immediately replaced Dolores's dictator binder with 3 things. Transparency, monthly budget votes, and an open door policy that didn't include binoculars. The community center got a whiteboard. People actually laughed at meetings. Someone brought pie. And just like that, we were a neighborhood again, not a micro-regime with a hatred of Cedar. I even got asked to help repaint the mailbox posts on the East Loop. Dolores once fined someone for using eggshell white. I used turquoise. It was glorious. As for my mailbox, I gave it a makeover. Not with wood. No, that was perfect. But the engraving now reads Carter Residents All Welcome. No longer a symbol of rebellion. Just a piece of community art that says, "Hey, we survived a clipboard apocalypse together." Soon, others followed. Personalized nameplates popped up like dandelions in June. One said, "Grammy's Nest." Another said, "Mailbox Fandy 2 still better than Fady 1. Even the grumpy guy on the corner added googly eyes to his. But the twist no one saw coming. A city records clerk, who follows local HOA filings like it's her version of reality TV, emailed Tom a week after the meeting. Attached was a spreadsheet showing over $3,000 in reimbursements submitted by Dolores in the last fiscal year. Lawn consultations, decorative consultations, emotional labor, mailbox visioning. She'd been treating the HOA account like a vending machine with no glass. And the city, they were already drafting a formal investigation. I don't know where she moved, but I hope they have stronger accounting software. People who scream about rules usually break them louder. She tried to write me out of the neighborhood, but all she managed was a resignation letter, with postage due. In the end, it wasn't about a mailbox. It was about standing your ground, sometimes with a wrench, sometimes with a receipt, and sometimes with a folding chair at the HOA meeting. I didn't set out to be the rebel of the neighborhood. But when the wrong person holds a clipboard too long, the right person has to speak up, even if that starts with Cedar and ends with certified mail. What did I learn? That dignity doesn't come from yelling, it comes from outlasting. That communities aren't built on silence and sameness. They're built on laughter, disagreement, and the occasional mailbox with personality. And most importantly, that petty power crumbles fast when good people stop playing along. So if you've ever been told to tone it down, move along, or just let it go, don't. Not when your name's on the deed. Not when your story deserves to be carved, not erased. If this story made you laugh, think, or text your neighbor a screenshot, do me a favor, smash that like button like it just issued a bogus violation. Drop a comment below about the wildest thing an HOA or neighborhood overlord has ever pulled. And make sure to subscribe, because next week's story, it involves a flamingo, a drone, and an HOA president who forgot their own dog's name. See you there, and remember, justice may not always knock, but sometimes it arrives wrapped in Cedar.